actually able to. I'm glad we were actually able to schedule some time to get this done.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Welcome, readers, and welcome to another People Friday. Actually, I'm recording this on Wednesday, but you'll get this on Friday. I have the privilege and honor to welcome one of my friends from both writers to speak with us today about his amazing journey with God, despite his ups and downs of this life. Welcome, Chuck. Can you first start off by telling us a little bit about your story?
Well, my story is kind of a hard one, but it ends well, I promise you. And so if you stick through some of the hard things, I really have a candlelight of hope for people. And that's what my story is. And that's why I share it. And that's why I'm sharing it with you. I grew up as a farm boy, grew up on a farm. My whole life was raised on a farm, Western Pennsylvania. And so some people might think that I grew up in a bubble, but I truly think that I grew up blessed. Lots of room to run and play and do the things that a kid would love to do. And it was a simple life. It was a good life. And I met Jesus when I was 5 and been following him ever since. So I've, in some ways, been living a dream. I just never thought the dream would end so quickly.
Can you describe a little bit of your childhood growing up, how it started?
My what growing up?
Childhood.
My priorities?
No, your childhood.
Oh, my childhood. Well, we did a lot of work on the farm. Farming is still hard, and kids had to work just the same as adults had to work. It was just different. But it taught me a lot of things. It taught me a good work ethic and how to get things done. And I carry that in even into my writing life as an author today.
What were your dreams growing up, and how did they change in college?
Oh, my dreams growing up. Well, I guess you could say that I was poised to take on a world. I figured that I was going to take on our family business and entered college as an agriculture student and was learning as much as I could, as quickly as I could, so that when I got out of school, I'd be able to run a business effectively. But while I was there, I also had a very deep-rooted interest in art. I'm a creative. I'm an Enneagram 4, and I was always art-minded. And while I was in college, living this dream, I dabbled in things like painting and drawing and really honed my skills in very well. And a lot of people took note. And while I was trying to achieve the dream of graduating, I also, as an art student, figured that my life needs to mean something. And I had this over encompassing umbrella, I guess you could say. I always had this mentality, this thought to my life that I wanted my life to mean something. I wanted my life to matter. And it didn't matter where I was or what I had my hand in. I wanted to shine. I wanted to shine for the Lord. I wanted to make a mark on people. And while I was an art student, I started doing paintings of Jesus, and you couldn't believe the response in a state school as I was doing paintings of Jesus, and it just took off from there. I was also teaching youth group. I would come home on weekends and teach the youth group at our local church. I was being plugged in. I was giving back to our community. I was giving back into God's kingdom, and things were really rolling. It
Let's
was
back,
it was good.
let's back up a little bit. When did you meet your wife, Becca?
My wife Becca, we got together. We've known each other for a long time. We knew each other for a long time. She was my sister's best friend. So she was at our house a lot growing up. And it was one of those interesting situations where she had a crush on me, but I wasn't so sure that I wanted anything to do with her for a while. And I didn't really want anything to do with a relationship with anybody for a while. But as I became serious with the Lord and serious with where my life was going, she kind of caught my eye. And, this might be a good thing. And so my sophomore year of college, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college, we got together and I finally looked her way after all those years, and the rest was history.
Uh, Um, was that when you decided to switch majors?
Yes, I switched majors. Well, a little bit after that, I switched majors from art to agriculture midway through my college career.
And you mentioned something about wanting to serve the Lord. Did Becca want the same things?
I guess I always had this desire to serve the Lord. I always wanted my life to matter. It took a while for me to figure out how I could do that. And the opportunity opened up while I was in college that the former youth pastor in our church was no longer there. And there was a hole, a void in our church. They needed somebody. And I kind of got put into it, whether I was going to stay there long or not. And I ended up staying for 12 years. We did it for 12 years. It was a
And
wonderful
Becca,
ministry.
yeah, and Becca wanted the same things you did.
Becca wanted very much the same things that I did as a different angle, woman's perspective.
Yeah.
But yes, she wanted the simple life too. She was a country girl at heart. She really enjoyed farm life and what we were doing purpose-wise as a couple, as a team. Things were really rolling well.
How long did you wait before you two decided to have children?
We waited 2 years.
Um, then there was that fateful day on Valentine's Day. Can you tell us a little bit about when your life changed?
We had made a decision that we were going to, as a couple, serve the Lord no matter what and give our lives to the Lord. It wasn't long, and I wrote about this in the book. I brought a copy with me. I don't know if you had a copy. Can you see it?
Yeah.
This is the book you're referring to, All That the Locusts Have Eaten. But we made that decision, and it wasn't long after it was just a normal day, a normal date with a normal couple, and just out of the blue, with no warning at all, we were on a Valentine's date and she started to feel sick. We had no prior warning, no prior guess that anything was wrong. And make a long story short, because she was so sick from that Valentine's dinner, that's what led us to the doctor visits and the string of many, many visits that led to her diagnosis and the unfortunate news of what was coming, but we had no idea. So no, we didn't see it coming, and I don't think anybody could have. She seemed like a perfectly healthy and perfectly whole individual.
And you two had two boys at that time.
We did. We had two
Was that-
boys.
Was that correct? How old were they at that time?
Back then, they would have been 3 and 1.
How many,
Justin was just born. He was just a little dude. So
how many hospital stays and surgeries did Becca have in total before you guys were diagnosed with what you're diagnosed with?
that's a very good question. One that I'm not sure I'd be able to give you
Okay.
a perfect answer for, but I guess the big picture answer is so many doctors and so many tests and so many visits, and I guess we could condense it all down to she had 3 major surgeries that were whoppers and lots of little things, but major surgeries like that is not only hard on the person who just had the surgery, but kids, spouses,
Yeah.
extended family, everybody involved. So it was a long, hard battle.
Who helped with the children during that time when you were in the hospital with your first wife?
That is a blessing. We had a huge support group. We had her parents, we had my parents, we had brothers and sisters on both sides of the family. We had a church family. We were plugged into the youth group. We had youth members that would chip in and help out. We had a very special family from church that grew extremely close to us. Brothers and sisters to Bradley and Justin, they helped like I can't ever thank. And without the support group that we had, it never would have been the way that it was. And I'll be eternally grateful for all the love and the support we had in that time. It really, really, really got us through.
Yeah. How did Becca and your kids handle the news of cancer?
Well, I'm not so sure the kids handled it. It's beyond a kid's processing board to be able to take something like that. And a 3-4-year-old doesn't know what cancer is, or they can understand that mommy's sick. That's about the extent of it.
Yeah.
It was difficult. There's no way to put it. It's difficult. Your world just got shook to its core, and you have to be able to hold a nuclear bomb, a notice that you've just been served, and be able to take a deep breath and live the next day and go on. And that is a very, very hard thing to do. And we had the advantage of a huge support team and a God who never left our side. And man, my heart breaks and feels for those people who don't have that, who don't have the reliance on a savior, who don't have a reliance on a Lord that they can lean on and trust in times like that, and a support team to help them through.
How did this diagnosis bring you closer to God and closer as a couple?
Well, it sure did. I guess probably the best way to answer that, Charles Spurgeon has a quote, if I could read it to you. He says, "When you go through a trial, the sovereignty of God is the pillow upon which you lay your head." And I don't think that I could explain it or describe it any better than that. When this sickness came, and as horrible as it was and as tragic as it was, it bonded us in a way that in our young marriage, even, we had never been bonded like that before. And to be able to lean on God and just like Charles Spurgeon said, it's the pillow on which we would lay our head. It became our everything. It transformed our mindset, transformed our ministry, transformed our effectiveness. Our ministry with the youth group bloomed into something that we would have never seen our effectiveness grow and the potential grow like that. We've made marks on kids that still last today, years later. So we used to joke
Yeah.
that we had hospital dates, and that's not the most fun place to have a hospital date. But when you're in a situation like that, it really brings you close, no matter where you are. So
I guess you already said this, but what is your perspective on sickness? And John 9:1-5, as well as 2 Corinthians 7-10.
well, I looked those verses up ahead of time, and many people think bad things happen. There must be a reason, and there must be some punishment or some consequence to something somebody has done. And that's an easy way out. That's an easy way out for the person who's bringing such judgment like that. And I have to tell you that we live in a fallen world. We live in a fallen and corrupt and sick world that's just the way that it is. And sometimes innocent people have hard and tragic things happen to them, and that's just plain it. And when God does things in his time, God does things in his way, but if he doesn't, then we shouldn't feel a condemnation about it. God's not like that. And to be in our situation when someone else on the outside would look our way, or maybe somebody listening to this is in a similar situation and they feel the judgment, condemnation from someone else like that, it's a shame. You're already sick. You're already going through a hard time, and then to have someone's judgment heaped on you like that is awfully upsetting. But God's word says in Romans, there's now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. And that's the category we were in. We were just living our life, doing what we were supposed to do. And that's how it happened. That's my best answer, I guess, to that question.
When Becca passed, unfortunately, how did you feel? How did you grieve?
Grieving is a funny thing, and everybody grieves different. And when grief hit me, grief hit hard. And the only way that I knew to handle it well, if you could say that, is to cling to what remained and do the best that I could. And our boys and I clung together in a time like we never really did prior to that. And we were determined to make it through. I carried their grief for them as well. I not only carried my own grief, I carried the grief of 2 kiddos. And that was hard, but necessary, I think. And I had to make time to be my best for them and I had to shut that off sometimes and be alone and flat out grieve and cry for myself.
After all this, you would think all the rest of your life would be positive, but your life didn't turn out like that. You had another instance that brought your life tumbling down. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna rebound and it would be easy after that, but that's not the way that it happened either. 2018, I was back at work and it was early morning. It was about 3:30 in the morning, and I was in a really bad accident where I was hit in the forehead with a metal pipe. And make a long story short, I didn't expect to still be here. And I don't know if any of your listeners have ever had a moment where they expected to wake up in heaven or not. But for me, in my situation, I kept blinking in and out of consciousness. And I fractured my skull in two places, I later found out. And I lost my hearing in my left ear and a whole bunch of other things. I had bleeding in my brain, and it was pretty bad for a long time. But when the paramedics came to get me and I blinked out for the last time, I heard them say right before I blinked out, "He just threw up pure blood." And when I heard that, I figured that I was done, which would bring anxiety, I'm guessing, to most people. But I have to tell you that I had such peace and such comfort and such a sense of an indwelling peace that I closed my eyes that last time, and I'm like, this is it. You only get one chance to die. You only get one chance to pass from this world to the next. You only get one chance to meet Jesus for the first time. I better enjoy this for all it's worth. And so I closed my eyes, fully expecting to wake up in heaven. And I didn't think about anything that I hadn't done. I didn't think about any job list or anything, any life goal or any bucket list that was still not checked. I fell off into a deep, dreamy sleep in peace. And then I woke up in Forbes Hospital in unbelievable pain. So it didn't happen again like I thought. But like I said, I had a bleeding in my brain, and they told me that I had a traumatic brain injury. I woke up the first time that I opened my eyes in the recovery room. I saw double and immediately started throwing up again. And the double vision lasted for a few days and then stopped. I thought it stopped, but my doctors told me that it didn't stop. My brain was so jumbled and so messed up, just trying to make sense of everything. It had shut one eye off. And so I had it shut one eye clear off. So I had to go to therapy just to figure out how to get my eye to turn back on again. And it was hard. It was without a doubt the hardest thing to recover physically from that I've ever gone through. And I was sent home after they found out that I was not leaking brain or spine fluid. But home was not a fun place. I couldn't handle visitors. I couldn't even handle being around anybody. But at the same time, I couldn't handle being alone either. Yeah, I became in this in-between place where it was too painful to be around anybody, but too painful to be alone. And I didn't know what to do or how to handle that or how to cope with it. And sent me into a crazy deep depression. I had lost everything that I had ever known. Just weeks prior, we had just gotten back from a kayak trip. I took our two boys off kayaking. We went kayaking in Maine and kayaked the islands, and we lived the life of pirates and did all kinds of wild and crazy things. And now I'm stuck in a chair 24/7 and can't handle the presence of anybody. And that was hard. That was really hard. And I didn't know what to do with it.
That's when somebody brought you a package.
Yep.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, thanks to God for that. I had someone send me a package. I didn't ask for it, didn't know it was coming, but I got a package and opened it up the one day. And it was 2 books by Johnny Erickson Tada. And when I tell my story, I tell this everywhere I go. And it was right around the time that my eyes were functioning enough that I could actually read. And, today's age, most people watch movies or, I'm not sure how many people actually read nowadays. I wish it was more. But to me, the gift of being able to read was huge. It gave me something to do. I didn't have to sit in silence anymore. At least I could see and read something on a page and entertain myself that way. But anyhow, I read Johnny Erickson Tada's story and I soaked it up like a sponge. I couldn't get enough of it. And I read her words. I read her depression. I read her accident. I read her despair. And then I read how God used her. And something clicked inside my head, almost like a light switch one day. And I thought to myself, if God can use Johnny, God can use me. And I didn't know how, and I didn't know where, but I knew he could do it. And my current wife, her name's Fairy, such a sweetie. She has just blessed my socks off in so many ways. And the one day she looked at me and she's like, it has been your dream to write a book. What better time to write a book than now? I was sitting in a chair for 24/7 with really not much to do. And I just finished reading Johnny Erickson Tada's book. And I thought to myself, she's right. And we went out to Best Buy, got myself a new computer, and I started to write. And I said to the Lord, Lord, if you want me to write a book, then you give me a book to write. And I kid you not, in 10 minutes, a brain-injured person in despair had the whole plot and outline lined out for his novel, and I started writing a book. And it was probably it was one of the easiest things I've ever done, my first book. I just wrote it and it just flowed and the Lord did it and it was awesome. So was I always in love with writing? I always did want to write. Maybe 20 years, been a 20-year dream, but I never had the time to do it. And it's funny how God works things out. And I think the Lord wanted me to write. And, God doesn't do bad things to people. He doesn't cause bad things to people, but sometimes he lets them happen. And Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for good to those that love God, those called according to his purpose. And I think he wanted me to write. And so here I am today.
Zoom said we're getting close to running out of time. So what's your favorite Bible verse and why?
My favorite Bible verse is Psalm 34:8. It says, taste and see that the Lord is good. And so many people never taste. And it's such a shame. And if people would just taste, just one little taste to see how good the Lord is, they'd never be satisfied with one little taste. They'd go for the whole bite. They'd go for the whole sandwich. They'd go for the whole ice cream cone. But we never taste. And I've tasted and I've seen, and I'm satisfied with what the Lord is doing. And if we're running out of time, I just have to say that, you might be in the despair that I was in. You might be in the depression that I was in. But my story is not a story told so that I can get likes or jerk people's heartstrings or pull a tear from somebody or have somebody feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for myself. I feel happy. I'm doing what God has called me to do. And I tell my story so that people can see the light of hope that I hold. And I want you to know that there's hope even for you, even no matter where you are and what your situation is, there's hope for you as well.
This is only part of Chuck's story. If you want to read more about his story, you can get Taste and See All That the Locusts Have Eaten by Chuck Carr, which he held up there for a minute. And you can also follow him where, Chuck?
You can find me on www.chuck-carr.com. My name with a hyphen in the middle.
And can you give us one final message on hope, on your perspective of hope?
Sure. I wrote this in the book that I just held up. I wrote, without hope, we lose sight of value. In my estimation, nothing is more fundamentally vital to the human spirit than hope. It is the essence of what drives us to carry on. Without it, we are lost and searching without direction. But with it, we can find strength and see through to the end. Hope is the flicker of light in the darkest of times. It is the slight whispering scent of a tasteful nourishment to the hungry and starving soul. Hope keeps us pushing forward. With it, the Lord brings us to greater places.
Thanks so much, Chuck,
Thank you for having
for
me.
joining us today. And again, you can visit Chuck's, hear more about Chuck's story and visit his website at chuckcarr.com. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
I'll see you next time at rolandw.com or on my blog. Thank you, everybody. Remember, God loves you. I love you, but God loves you more. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, or stop the recording.